This week's guest has been acting for, if you can believe it, 30 years, but please believe she is just getting started. While we first fell in love with her as London Tipton in The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, her latest projects like The Last Showgirl and Netflix's upcoming series Running Point have shown that her best work is yet to come. Please welcome to Keep It, it's Brenda Song.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. That's quite the intro.
Here. I mean, you've earned it, okay? I was
You're so sweet.
I was telling Lewis before we started, I was like, I am OG Sweet Life of Zack and Cody fan.
Oh,
I was
no,
Disney down.
I want to say thank you, and also I'm sorry.
All right.
I always feel the need to apologize to everyone's parents because I'm like, being a parent myself, I understand the constant loop that these shows stay on. So my deepest apologies to you and your parents.
I've actually said this with Lewis on the show. I feel like I've revisited, that, or Wizards of Waverly Place, or even like Nickelodeon shows, like all that, right? And I didn't realize how much in kids' shows, it's just a lot of yelling all the time. Yes. I think my mom commented on that once when I was younger, and now I'm like, oh, we were just laughing at kids, yelling at each other.
Going ham.
What was it like, I guess, you're acting when you were on a show like that versus then stepping into, adult projects?
Well, there's something really fun about the innocence of being a child actor. You just don't know any different. And being on a show like The Sweet Life was so fun because I always say I got to literally step into my dream character's shoes every single day and do like the most wild, crazy things. And so I think as a kid, you're just like a kid on a playground. You're just having fun. And especially with kids shows, everything's so broad and crazy. And I think transitioning into an adult while also trying to transition into an adult actor is hard because you're still trying to figure out who you are as a human being, as, a young adult, and navigating your way, and then doing that also in your work when you haven't quite lived or had enough life experience to actually feel these emotions and not just emulate them and pretend this is what falling in love is when you haven't actually done that before. So I think, the same way that it's sort of me transitioning from, a kid to an adult, I feel like doing that, I kind of did that on camera as well, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, no, it's been really fun. Like, especially I think in my 20s, I always say like art imitates life, life imitates art. One of my first like jobs coming out of Sweet Life was like The Social Network where I was a college student. And then I was on Scandal where I played an assistant. I was like, that's what I would sort of be doing in my normal life. But yeah, so I think it was just fun. Kind of like the more life experience I had, I feel like I obviously became a better actor because I started to understand what it actually was to feel and go through these things. So I think the difference is like, I always say like acting on Disney was like very up here. And as I've grown older, I realized that everything comes from the gut, like just being more grounded. So yeah.
I just want to say that Jane Fonda has said something similar about going from like rom-coms in the 60s to grittier projects in the 70s. So I think you're right on track. If you want a 90-year-long career, get ready.
Please.
I just want to say, you are so good in The Social Network. I hope you look back on that performance and think, oh, that was like a kind of a milestone moment. You and Rooney Mara, I think, are like two of the most memorable parts of that movie.
Oh, thank you. I that project changed my life on screen, off screen. Like, it was the most incredible project for me to like kind of come to at that point in my life and career. So I always have such a special place in my heart for that movie.
I mean, I remember seeing that movie come out and then just being like, that is Brenda Song. I stand Brenda Song for a minute. And now jumping to Running Point, you are working with such a amazing cast of people, Kate Hudson, and you've got Chet Hayes as well. Which is
Can I tell you something? I love Chet so much. He is like, I didn't know what to expect. And he, I have to say, is one of just like the sweetest and I think misunderstood humans out there. He has a really funny sense of humor and he like pokes fun at himself. I absolutely have a very special place in my heart for Chet.
Well, when we saw that interview he did with Z-Way, I thought, oh, wait a minute. This is a really funny person. Like, it's not all I'm actually crazy. It's like he like outwitted her a couple of times, which never happens on that show.
And he sort of steers into, I think, what people expect of him. He's so funny on this show. Like, I think more than anything, I was so incredibly impressed by how prepared he was, how funny he was on this show, and how seriously he took this role. I was like, it was really funny, like, from him freestyling to, finding bits when there wasn't anything there. Like, it was really quite impressive. And to be honest, working on this project was kind of crazy because there would be times when I would be in a scene, I'm like, I can't believe I'm in a scene with Kate Hudson right now. Like, I'm watching Justin Theroux just go off on a chain. I'm like, this is crazy. And I feel incredibly grateful to just be surrounded by such, not just incredibly talented people, but like kind and generous, like human beings. It's been quite an experience, and I feel just very, very lucky.
Well, I want to say on that front, though, I mean, you talk about them being great actors. You I think, actually have a longer career than some of these people. Like, and even Kate Hudson, or Justin Theroux is kind of up there too. But do you feel like a bunch of kind of like acting veterans up there? Like, you're young people, and yet some of you have been in this business like 30 years, 25 years.
We must be psychotic that we've been doing it so long and still love it so much. But that's what's something that was beautiful about working on something like this, where I think we all come to the table with so much different kinds of experiences and stories, but all still had the same goal and the same sort of work ethic, which is really, really hard to do. But I think that says a lot to Mindy Kaling and Dave Stassen and Ike Barinholtz, our creators, who put this team together, are very like-minded actors and crew and cast. It was really lovely, but also really sort of fun to be on a set where, you have Justin Theroux and Kate Hudson who rarely do TV, and then you have, Scotty MacArthur and Drew Tarver, who, like, Scotty is such a profound writer. Drew is an improv actor. Like, it was such a fun set to be on. It felt like a masterclass in comedy because you had such a different array of actors coming to the table. I felt like every day I was just trying to soak everything in because it was so much fun, because they obviously have so much experience.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and speaking of people who've been in the industry for so long, my friend Hunter Harris interviewed you for Cosmo
Yes.
with Macaulay. And
Yes.
what is it like, I guess, doing a joint interview together? Like, what was it like? Like, what was even the conversation with you both before you were like, I guess we're doing a cover together for Cosmopolitan?
Honestly, it was really scary because, being in the public eye, you try to keep as many personal things you can personal, but at a certain point, like, it was funny, I was actually more hesitant to do the cover than Mac was. He was like, yes, let's do it, and I was kind of like, there's so few things that we keep private, but at the same time, it's like, he's my person, we have a family, it's like nothing that we want to hide or anything like that. And if we're going to tell our love story, what better way than for us to tell it? And Hunter did such a beautiful job. We had such a great lunch together, and we sort of just had the convo that if we were going to do this, we wanted to be as open as possible and do this, we didn't want to go into not wanting to answer anything and keeping it. So it's like, if we're going to do this, let's embrace where we are. We're in such a wonderful, happy, joyous place. Like, we just want to spread the love and spread the joy and, tell the world that in this crazy time, like, you can find your person, and, life is all about ups and downs, and you have to celebrate every yes. And, because there's so many no's. And so for us, I think it was us celebrating this yes. We always joke that, we don't post about our kids or anything like that, and they're like, oh, why aren't you on social media more? I'm like, because my phone is just filled with my kids, because that's my happy place. And so to be able to share a little bit of that has been really scary, to be honest, but also really liberating and fun, because this is like this new phase and chapter in my life, and I feel like I've never been so fulfilled in my personal life, and I think that's the reason why I feel so fulfilled in my professional life, and just wanting to sort of share that with the world is sort of what kind of pushed us to say yes.
Well, the Cosmo spread is almost chronically adorable. I mean, the pictures in it are, it's like you have to like clutch the table looking at these pictures.
Oh, you're so kind.
But also, something about your relationship that has fascinated me recently is that Mac was just a contestant on Celebrity Jeopardy, where I believe he cited you as like helping him prepare for this. And I want to know what kind of, it seems like he must be a fan of Jeopardy if he went on that show.
Oh, huge fan of Jeopardy. He grew up watching. His mom watches it religiously. And me being the tiger helicopter mom I am. When I was like, oh, we're getting all of the trivia games. I was literally quizzing him with just like random like trivia, like crazy. I couldn't help myself, and I'm very, very proud of him. And funnily enough, Ike Barinholtz, one of our creators on the show and writers, he actually won the first season of Celebrity Jeopardy. So it's we are a Celebrity Jeopardy household apparently. But yeah, it was so much fun. I was so nervous for him. It was like, yeah.
The most nervous I've ever been for another person is watching them on Jeopardy. It's unlike anything. Like watching somebody act is not as nerve-wracking.
No, not at all. And the funny thing is, there was like a couple questions where I was literally like mouthing the answer. I was like, "Am I that person? I have become that person." I was like, "Honey, it's Peaky Blinders," because he's never watched the show, and so little things. But I was totally helicopter mom, like so nervous and excited. But I'm really proud of him. He did a really good job. But he got dratched.
Yes, Rachel Dratch. Also smart lady.
Incredible.
I'm not surprised she's great at Jeopardy.
Iconic. Yes.
What another thing that I love too, is just like you're talking about your love in that relationship, and I feel like one thing that he and like his brother really share is like they love their wives. Like I love seeing Kieran, talk about his wife, like when he's going through this whole award circuit, I guess, does any of that envelop into like your family? Like how involved do you feel like you are when your brother is supporting his brother?
I think it's, as with any familiar relationship, it's like, how can you not support one another, especially when you see someone doing what they love and getting the accolades and the flowers for doing what they love to do. I think it's very symbiotic. And I feel like, people always ask like, what's it like? And I was like, honestly, it's family. It's just what we know. And, we're a crazy bunch that all love this industry. So yeah, I think it's just about enjoying, like, again, celebrating all the yeses and all the accolades, because life as an actor is pretty crazy. There's so many ups and downs. So I don't think it necessarily, let me answer your question. I don't know if it like shapes it, but I think it's definitely like, it is what it is. Like it's, that's how they are off camera. So it doesn't feel like anything different or out of the ordinary.
And he just
you have the benefit too of being just, having been in the industry since you were a kid too, so I feel like you all share that.
Oh, 1,000%. It's kind of this unspoken sort of just understanding being a child actor, because you don't realize that you've been living the work life of a 30-year-old person since you were very, very young. And so I think I feel like there's just something you can see another child actor from like across the room and just know, and just there's like you get it. You get it. We've been through it all. But yeah, no, of course, it's always so nice when you have that sort of, because it's such a unique experience being a child actor, and then a child actor who continuously acts into their adulthood is very unique. And so to have, a group of people that sort of had that understanding, it's really nice.
Well, speaking of child actors, in The Last Showgirl, it's a bunch of people, Kiernan Shipka, even Jamie Lee Curtis to a certain extent is like a former child actor. And then, but all of you, including Pam Anderson, are doing things I've never seen you do on the silver screen before. And I was wondering what kind of bonding experience that was, being with people who seem to all be doing something brand new for them.
That project was so incredibly special because I think it was such a small cast and crew, and everyone who worked on that project truly from the bottom of their heart wanted to be there. And the beautiful thing is Gia Coppola, our director, she really took a risk, I feel like, in casting all of us. That's really on her, putting us in roles that people didn't expect us to be in. And she really kind of like created such a beautiful, safe place for us to take risks that we wouldn't normally take. And she really prepped us as actors. At least I can only speak for myself, but she really prepped me to sort of be in a place where I was able to be vulnerable and scared every single day and trust my instincts. Shooting on film was really scary because knowing we only had like a couple takes for something, it kind of brought back this like old school feeling that I hadn't had in a really long time. And, and to be honest, I think Pamela set she set the standard so high every day because she came to set with literally the entire script memorized. She came out every day and was like vulnerable, scared, and like put her heart in her sleeve every single day. And you could tell that there were times where she was really nervous and scared, but did it anyway. And so when you're working with that sort of leader and you're working that environment, you can't help but also dive in headfirst as well. And I feel like we all were in that place and just willing to do whatever it needed to take to get this done. And I feel like that's why it was such a magical process, but also I think that's also why we all became so close so quickly, because we were in this like kind of crazy environment where all of us were like nervous. Like we hadn't really, I always say I never get cast in films like this, and we were all doing something that we hadn't done. Jamie was coming off her Oscar win. Like it was chaotic and harmonious all at the same time. And so I think it was all really having each other's support that kind of pulled us through this kind of really intense but beautiful shoot that we had.
Also, I want to give props to Dave Bautista in that movie. He gives a really good performance, and like nobody's really talked about that. It's definitely like my favorite performance of his to date.
Oh, he is the most kind and incredible like human being. I got to do a scene that it didn't make the movie, but I got to do this really intense scene with him, and he is such like the biggest teddy bear, like this most sensitive, kind, hardworking person working on this scene. Like he is so talented and willing to do whatever it takes and willing to go there. Like there was a point in time where I was like hitting him. He's like, no, just give it to me. And I was like, this is amazing. And all you ask for as an actor is to have someone who's willing to go there with you, willing to take those risks, willing to sort of like jump in the deep end together. And it was incredible. He's so great in this movie, and I'm so excited to see like what's to come for him, because he really is so good. And also, funnily enough, he came in with that character, like the wig and everything. I thought that he grew out his hair. Like he built this character. He did that and showed up. Like he kind of told Gia, like I don't want to speak for Gia, but I remember Gia saying that like he's like, oh, I'm gonna do a wig, and she's like, okay, let's see how it goes. And he came in with the full getup. He built this character. He did all of this work, and it's really incredible. And I really hope that people get to see more in depth what kind of actor he really is, because he's really very, very talented.
Mm-hmm. Lewis brought this up earlier, but I mean, you worked with Gia Coppola on this, and then like your first film was with David Fincher, and so I guess like what was it like working with Fincher, and then also being with current like acting powerhouses like Andrew Garfield and Jesse Eisenberg, but like they were really sort of blowing up with that movie,
That experience was probably one of the most impactful experiences of my life, just coming out of Disney, like figuring out who I was as an actor, and then diving in and working with David is one of my favorite directors. Fight Club is one of my favorite books, one of my favorite movies of all time. I've been such a fan, and to work with him was such a dream come true. And he was so incredibly generous with his time, and I feel like I wouldn't be the actor I am today if it wasn't for that experience. And to work with Andrew and Jesse, who at that time were still on the way up, and even in that moment, you knew they were special. They were so talented and so like just such like it was such you just knew you were working with incredible actors. And so that was like such a masterclass in acting for me, coming off a Disney show and just feeling like out of, figuring out what I wanted to do, and jumping into that was literally such a dream. And Andrew and Jesse were the best. Like they were, we were all so young at like crazy crossroads in our lives. And I look back at that experience, I was like, we were just like young kids, like kind of been like, oh, I guess we're making this thing. Like it was just so much fun. I only spent like 10 days on that set, but it was so life-changing for me. And it's hard because that was my first, like, I think, real feature film, and it set the bar so high that I've always been so nervous, because like that experience was so incredible. But again, I would not be where I am without that. So I'm just grateful for that experience. I'm like, who gets to, I get to say I was in a Fincher movie. Like that's crazy.
If David Fincher were directing me the entire time, I'd be thinking, this is the man who directed the Vogue video. I mean, like, in his 20s.
I thought of that too.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought of that too. Don't you think twice? I'm like, this is the man that did like the most iconic Madonna videos. Like, are you kidding me?
Express yourself, like the best ones. Yeah.
Like on the beach, I see it. The fire. Oh yeah, 1,000%.
Was there anything that you said he like gave so much time to you and care when like directing you? Is there anything that you like specifically remember him saying, or just like a moment on set that like sort of like switched a gear in your head where you were like, okay, now I feel like a real actor, like I'm off the Disney set?
Well, you know, the thing about David is he loves a real reaction. So, you know, I remember like doing that scene where I confront Andrew and I burn this car. First of all, funny story, I didn't know how to use a lighter because I was just like, you know, I know, and David had to take me outside to teach me how to use a lighter. So every time I use a lighter, I always think of Fincher taking me outside the lot and like teaching me how to like use a lighter. But, you know, he loves, like, I remember him telling me, like, he put certain things in the room. And for me to really just take a second and look at, you know, crunched up McDonald's, like things that the audience would never see, like crunched up, like, McDonald bags and a Happy Meal box. Like, and he goes, just take all that in, and because he wants your natural reaction. But he doesn't tell you this. He just says, take a second, look at the room. And I just remember, like, it made me really understand what being in the moment was, and not just worrying about your lines or hitting your mark, but remembering that this is an experience. Like, what is this person going through? And kind of, again, grounding this character. Like, if I was a girlfriend who has been texting and calling my boyfriend, if I saw him, what was the first thing I'd do? I'd be looking around, figuring out, like, it being a crazy PI right away, and just sort of and he does that, like, in this sort of gentle way that, like, you don't overthink it. Because I also feel like that's why he does so many takes. He wants to break you out of your habit. Like, you know, he may do 20 takes, and in that, there's 3 takes. But he's like, I remember him just like, trust your instincts. You know what you're doing. Just go and do it. And for me, it was so incredibly helpful because I feel like, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm doing this like huge film with these incredible actors, and this, you just start getting in your head. And when he starts telling you to do it again and again, you have to stop thinking. You have to kind of default to your instincts. And that experience reminded me that I was like, oh no, I know my character. If I've done the work, I should walk in and I should be in this moment. And I think that's what it really taught me. And I was like, oh, is this what like acting really is? It's not just about lines and all this stuff. And so I think that's what that experience really showed me. And that scene specifically was just being in the moment and like reacting as naturally and like organically as I would, which is still helpful. And I use that for myself all the time, even now.
Well, Running Point, by the way, is addictive. I watched 3 episodes, like not even thinking about it. Like it went down.
Oh, thank you.
It went down in a way that only things like Emily in Paris have gone down historically. So just know that something like it does something to my brain.
Sir.
It did something to my brain, is what I'm saying. So congrats on the show, and congrats on your rad marriage and this photo shoot, which again I'm peering at, like just like hearts in my pupils.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
I hope you got it framed. Like, it's such a beautiful, yes.
Oh, no. It's one of the reasons why we did it. Mac likes to joke, we have a mantle, and he's like, we have to do it. It's for the mantle. It's for the mantle, honey. So, yes. No. We're going to get a frame, and it'll go on the mantle.
Great. Well, thank you for being here, Brenda. And Running Point is on Netflix now.